What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Bandit here, and today we'll be doing something a bit different. Today I'll be making a video on new, as the title suggests, Yu-Gi-Oh for noobs, right? So basically, this video is to teach those who are completely clueless about the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, the basic rules of Yu-Gi-Oh and certain things that you need to understand about it, so that at the very least, at the end of this video, you'll be able to like watch a Yu-Gi-Oh video online and actually be able to understand some of the things that are happening, so that you're not completely clueless by the end of the watching the video. I know that a lot of my viewers possibly they don't know how the game is played, or they're at the very least they're very new to the game, and there are a lot of things they might not understand. So I'm hoping that this video can help them to have a better help you guys to have a better appreciation of what the game is about and how it's played. All right, so we'll be going into it right now. So the things that we want to cover in this video, we want to cover what the game is, some of the basic rules. We want to talk about the three types of cards that are in the game. These are monster cards, spell cards, trap cards. We also want to go into what are game phases. These are very important as well to understand what you can do at which point. And another important part is the duel field, because without the duel field, you're not going to know where to put the cards or where the cards go. So yeah. So firstly, what is the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game? The Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game is a two-player game, tabletop game, where both players use various cards and card effects to try to defeat their opponents. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. You put cards on the table and they do stuff and you beat your opponent, right? So first of all, before you know how to win a game, you have to know how to lose it. So these are the four main ways to lose a Yu-Gi-Oh match. You have your life points drop to 0. You run out of cards in your deck by the effect of certain cards. The most common one that people might know most about is Exodia. Getting Exodia is very common in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you forfeiting, because you can always forfeit at any time during a Yu-Gi-Oh! Match. And how to win your Yu-Gi-Oh! Game? Just don't do any of those stuff before your opponent. Pretty simple to do. Other common rules that you have to keep note of. Usually, you're only in main formats. Commonly in most formats, you start off with 800 life points, 8,000 life points. Sorry. You can have more than 40 cards in your deck, 40 or more cards in your deck, but you can't have over 60 cards in your deck, right? You can't have any less than 40 cards. You can't have any more than 60, right? And in your extra deck, you cannot have more than 15 cards in your deck. We'll mainly be focusing on our main deck for this video, because it is the more important deck of the two, because you can't play the game without your main deck, but you can play it without an extra deck. So now we're gonna go into the three main types of cards. You guys are probably know them already. They're monster cards, spell cards, and trap cards. Your monster cards, they can be found both in your main deck and your extra deck. Your extra deck is usually full of special types of monster cards, right? But in your main deck, in your main deck you have spells, traps, and monster cards as well. They can be summoned to the field to battle and to deal damage to your opponents. They have an attack stat and a defense stat. We'll be going into what those do later on. They have a level ranging from 1 being the lowest and 12 being the highest, and they have an attribute that acts somewhat like an element, a type, and a card description, right? So these are the common things that you find in every monster card, no matter what type of monster card there is. And trust me, there's a lot of types of monster cards. We won't be going into all of them during this video, but hopefully, if this video does well enough, I'll try and make a different video, a future video, going through all the types of monster cards. And this is a image made by yours truly, basically showing what everything on the monster card is. So you have your attribute at the top, Your attribute, as I said, it's like your element. You have multiple types of attributes. You have your dark types, your light types, your fire types, your earth types, wind types, water types. Those are your attributes. After that, you have your levels. That's represented by the stars, the circle stars right underneath your attribute. Though your level is, it's important to, because they determine whether a monster can be normal summoned or if they have to be tribute summoned. A normal summon means that you can just you summon it directly from your hand. Though you have to be a specific level to that. You have to be level 4 or lower to be able to normal summon a monster. Versus a tribute summon, you need to tribute a monster on the field to get your monster out, right? Monsters higher than level 4, so that's level 5 and up, they usually have to be tribute summoned, right? And after that, you have your monster's name. This helps to differentiate your card. It could be, you could consider it monster name or card name. Every card has a specific name that helps differentiate it. Can't have two cards that do different things have the same name, then that wouldn't make any sense. You also have a type. Every monster has a type. You're either there are many types, a lot more types than attributes actually. You can be a spellcaster, you can be a warrior, you can be a dragon type monster, you can be a worm type monster, you can be a reptile, you can be a rock monster. So those are your types. There are many types in the game. You also have a card text. Note that I didn't say a card effect, because not all monster cards have effects, unlike with traps and spells. Certain monsters, you have vanilla monsters, are normal monsters as they're known, the more correct term for it. In Yu-Gi-Oh players will call them vanilla monsters. These monsters, they don't have effects. Once you summon them on the field, they don't do anything other than either attack or defend. So yeah, these cards, instead of giving them an effect in the little box where is labeled card text, they give them like text that describes like the lore behind the card. So for instance, with the Dark Magician, it says the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense, right? So it doesn't really mean anything. Like they'll have some pretty gnarly stuff that they write on these cards, but yeah, it doesn't affect anything. You also have your attack stat and your defense stat. As I said before, we'll go into what these things are. Attack is represented by the ATK, and the defense is represented by the DEF, as you would expect. Yeah. So on Dark Magician, he has a 2,500 attack and a 2,100 defense, right? So now we talk about what spell cards are. Spell cards can be found in the main deck only. You don't find spell cards in the extra deck. They have an effect that can be triggered during your turn, right? So that means that once you have a spell card in your hand, you can activate it directly from your hand. So you can activate an unlimited amount of spell cards. As long as you have them in your hand, you can activate it. As long as you have the means that are and as long as you're able to actually carry out its effect. For instance, you can't activate a Raigeki, which destroys all your opponent's monsters on the field, if your opponent doesn't have monsters on the field. That wouldn't make any sense. But as long as you can use the effect of the spell card, there's no limit to how much you can use. You just activate them straight from your hand. That's how spell cards work. And spell cards are the green ones. I didn't state what color monster cards are, because there's a lot of types of monster cards and a lot of different colors for monster cards. Yeah, but usually what you use to differentiate a monster card from every other card would be like, the attack and the defense, and amongst all the other stuff that are listed. You'll see how much different the cards look from another picture that's made by yours truly. Subscribe so you can get other cool pictures like this. Anyways, so yeah, you see, unlike with the monster card, the spell card is way more simple compared to it. It doesn't have anything like attributes or types or all of that. So first we start off with the spell type. Spell cards, there are different types of spell cards as well. Not as much as monster cards, but not as much as monster cards, but they're also important as well. I'll probably make a video on them as well. You have your quick play spells, your normal spells, your continuous spells, and all of that. So yeah, at the top of where my cursor is pointing, where the line is pointing, you see that little black circle when the spell card label right there. That little black thing, it indicates what type of spell it is, right? In games like Master Duel or on like online games, they usually put like word text to tell you specifically what the card is, right? So you don't usually have to worry about knowing what each of those are. You also have the spell's name, and you also have the card effect. As I said, there's no spell card. I don't believe there's a spell card in the game without an effect, or that would be a very useless spell card. Now you have your trap cards. Trap cards are found in the main deck. They can be activated during your opponent's turn, or your turn, or your next turn after it was set. So that's the important difference between spell cards and trap cards. Trap cards, they have to be set face down first before they're able to activate their effect, and you can't activate them the same turn that they're set face down, unless, well, by specific. There are cards with card effects that state that, well, when this monster is on the field, you can activate trap cards directly from your hand. But usually, if you just have a regular trap card, you have to set it face down first and activate it during either your opponent's turn or any other turn after the turn that you set it, right? So if this is your first turn, you set a solemn judgment, and you can't activate that solemn judgment during your turn, even though your opponent might activate an effect from their hand, and you could possibly have used it, but you can't use it because you just set it that turn, right? But when it's your opponent's turn, it turns over to your opponent's turn, then you can activate it whenever you want. Right, and again, there's no limit to the amount of trap cards you can activate, well, except from the amount of space that you have on your field to set it, right? As long as if your zones are clogged, then you can't set another card, then you won't be able to activate it. And trap cards are the purple cards. Again, we have another image showing what the cards do. Hey, it's Solemn Judgment, I just mentioned it. Anyways, you have a trap type. There are also multiple types of traps. You have your trap's name, and again, its card effect. Just the card, you can see that the trap cards and the spell cards are quite similar in their form, or how they're arranged. But yeah, you can identify them differently by the fact that one is green and the other one is purple. Alright, now that we've finished talking about the card types, that's the basics on card types, basically. Now we're going to go into the game phases. This is important to know because you need to know when you're able to do what you, at which point and stuff. You need to know when you're able to do whatever you need to do. Alright, so we'll be going into what each these phases are and what happens during each of these phases now. During your draw phase, this is where you draw your card for a turn, because during each turn, the turn player draws one card from the top of their deck. This is the phase where this happens. It's the beginning of each turn. Yeah, you have your draw phase, and that's when you draw your card from the top of your deck. You can't normal summon, you can't summon, you can't activate trap cards or anything like that during this turn. And a good thing to note is that the person who's going first doesn't draw a card during their first turn. So if you go and you do a coin flip, or whatever it is you use to decide which player goes first, the player that went first does not draw a card during their first turn. They draw a card under the turn that happens after that, but the player that goes second gets to draw a card during their first turn. So that's important to know. Next, you have your standby phase. Your standby phase is just a small window. It's a window between your draw phase and your main phase. There's nothing really happens during this phase except for specific cards that are able to be activated during this phase. This phase is made specifically for cards that need to be activated before your main phase is activated, right? So because you can't activate anything during your draw phase, because you can't really interrupt your opponent during when they're drawing, right? So the standby phase is what happens right before your main phase, so that any of those card effects that need to be activated before the main phase begins can be activated then. right? And again, under no known cards can be summoned or effects can be activated during this turn unless you have a card effect that specifies that you're allowed to do this during the standby phase. Next, we have our main phase 1. Note that the importance of the 1. There, you have two main phases in a turn of Yu-Gi-Oh. Yes, the main phase 1 is the one that happens right after your standby phase. This is the meat and potatoes of your turn. This is when you basically do everything except for you can do everything at this turn except for battle, except for punch your opponent, right? So yeah, you can summon monsters, you can activate spells or traps, you can tribute your monsters, you can activate monster effects, you can special summon from your extra deck, you can do anything during your standby phase as long as you have the cards to be able to do it, right? Nothing really hinders you from you doing anything during this turn unless it's not your turn, right? But that goes without saying. So yeah, that's your main phase. Right after your main phase, you go directly into your battle phase, right? This occurs right after your main phase 1. Your battle phase, yeah, your battle phase happens between your main phase 1 and your main phase 2. This, as the name implies, is when you battle your opponent. During your battle phase, you can choose either to punch into your opponent's monsters. You can choose to use your monsters to attack your opponent's monsters, or to attack if your opponent doesn't have any monsters on the field. Attack your opponent's life points directly, and your opponent takes damage equal to your monster's attack in life point damage if they're attacked directly. If your opponent is attacked directly by your monster, right? During your battle phase, now you'll see where the attack and defense stat come in handy, right? So if so as we stated before, if you're attacking your opponent with a monster with 1,000 attack, you're attacking him directly, he takes 1,000 points of damage to his life points, and instead of being at 8,000 life points, he drop down to 7,000 life points. So during your battle phase, if you're while you're attacking, we'll speak on when you're attacking your opponent's monsters. Usually a monster when it's summoned, can be summoned in either two positions. Attack position, this is where it's standing upright. I should have an image of that. I apologize. You'll see all of this when we go into our battle later on. It has attack position. This is when your card is face up. Our defense position, this is when your card is turned 90 degrees. So it's turned on its side instead of forward, face up, right? The attack position, when your monster attacks an attack position monster, what happens is that the monster with the least attack of both monsters gets destroyed, and on top of that, the person who owned the destroyed monster takes damage to their life points equal to the difference between the highest monster's attack and the lowest monster's attack, right? So if I attacked into my opponent's attack position monster with a monster with 2,500 attack and his monster only had 2,000 attack, then my monster would destroy his monster and he would take 500 points of damage to his life points, right? And also important to note, if an attack position monster attacks another attack position monster and both of them has the same amount of attack, then both monsters will be destroyed. So if my 1,000 attack monster attacks into your attack position monster with 1,000 attack, both of them get destroyed. Nobody takes any battle damage, right? And also, if your opponent attacks a defense position monster, however, two things can happen. If you're the one attacking your opponent's monster, your attack position monster attacks his defense position monster, and if his defense is lower than your monster's attack, then the defense position monster gets destroyed, right? So for instance, again, if I'm attacking with a 2,000 attack monster and my opponent has a monster with only 1,500 defense, then his defense position monster will be destroyed. He doesn't get any damage to his life points, however. As the name implies, your monster is in defense position. You put him in defense position to try and protect your life points, right? So you don't take any battle damage if your monster is in defense while an attack is happening, right? But if you attack into your opponent's defense position monster, and is the defense position monster's defense is higher than your monster's attack, then you take the difference in the defense and the attack in damage to your life points. So for instance, you attack with your 2000 attack monster into your opponent's defense position monster, but the defense position monster has 2500 defense, then you'll take 5000 damage. You take 500 damage to your life points, but your monster does not get destroyed. Neither monster gets destroyed, right? And also important to note as well, if the attack of the attacking monster is equal to the defense of the defending monster, then neither monster gets destroyed. That was a mouthful. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't confuse anybody by that. It's important to note. As I said, we'll be doing a duel at the end of this, so that you guys will be able to see more clearly, rather than me just yapping on. So yeah, just like with the rest of the phases, cards can't be summoned, cards can't be activated, or effects can't be activated or anything like that, unless you have a specific card that states that it can do something during the battle phase. Unless it has a specific card effect that states otherwise, right? And also good to note, the person who goes first can't enter their battle phase, right? So if you won the coin flip or whatever it is you'd use to decide whether who goes first and who goes second, and you go first, you can't enter your battle phase. You can't enter your battle phase. You can only go your main phase 1, right? After this, you have your main phase 2. This happens right after your battle phase. It's the same thing as your main phase 1, basically. This phase is basically for if you have any other plays that you can activate during your any more plays that you can do after your battle phase. So for instance, you did all the attacking and stuff. Your opponent isn't dead yet. You have a spell card you can activate, or a trap card that you can set. You can do all of this during your main phase 2, right? And then right after your main phase 2 is your end phase, right? As the name implies, this is the end of your turn. Nothing happens during this turn. This just signifies the end of your turn. And just like with the rest of the turns, you can't summon anything, you can't activate any effects, you can't do anything like that during your end phase, unless it's by a specific card effect. Your opponent can activate trap cards during your end phase, however, so you can keep note of that. And good point to note is that after you enter your main phase 1, you can basically go into the end phase at any time, right? So if you're doing your main phase 1 and you don't have a monster to attack, or you don't want to attack, you can go straight into your end phase. Same for if you go into your battle phase and you don't have anything that you can do during your main phase 2, you can go straight into your end phase again. Alright, time to go into duel fields. This is also another important point. As stated before, you need to know where you're gonna put your cards. The duel field is where you place your cards, obviously. Each part has a specific role and allows certain cards to be placed there. The duel field is the same on the opponent's side as it is on your side of the field. So yeah, your opponent has the same things that you have. And these are all the parts of the duel field. We'll be going into what each of these do. So yeah, you have your main monster zones. These are where, as the name implies, this is where you summon your monsters. Yeah, all types of monsters can be summoned here. You only have 5, and they're located right above your spell and trap zones. Speaking of spell and trap zones, these are your spell and trap zones. As the name also implies, this is where you set or activate spells or traps, and you only have 5 of them as well, just like with your monster zones, and they're located right behind your main monster zones. Alright, another important part of the field is your extra monster zones. The extra monster zones are a place where you can summon out extra deck monsters. Um, certain You can choose to summon your extra deck monsters here, or yeah, or you can summon them in your main monster zones. But certain monsters can only be summoned in your extra monster zones, right? So, for instance, link monsters, which we'll go into as well later on in a future video, hopefully. That all depends on you guys. Like the video and subscribe if you want to see more. Um, yeah, you can only summon. Oh, you can only summon to one of your extra, one of the extra monster zones on the field. So the way extra monster zones work is like, you see that there's only two on the field, and they're located right on the border between your field, your side of the field, and your opponent's side of the field. Basically, the way it should work is that one of them is for you and the other one is for your opponent. However, there are certain ways that you can summon monsters into both your extra monster zones, but it's complicated. It's a game mechanic that we'd take a lot of time to go into right now, which isn't something that you need to know anyways. As we said, we're going into the bare minimum with this video, so yeah, we won't need to go into that. Your next zone is your field spell zone. Your field spell zone is a specific zone on the field where your field spells are activated. Field spells are they're a special type of spell, which we'll go into that in a future video. Field spells can only be activated at the field spell zone, as you can imagine, and no other spell or trap can be activated there. Each player has only one, however, so yeah, each player has a field spell zone. And next you have your graveyard. So yeah, all the cards that are destroyed go to your graveyard zone, and all the normal spells or traps that are activated get sent to your graveyard zone as well. So if you have a Raigeki, and you use it, after it's used, you have to send it to your graveyard, right? It's located at the right side of your field, and each player has one. Also, you have your banish zone. Your banish zone is located right above your graveyard zone. Cards get sent to the banish zone by card effects. It's the only way that cards get sent to the banish zone, right? So if you have a specific card that says, "Oh, banish this card from your graveyard and do this," or a card that says, "Oh, when cards are destroyed on the field, send it to the banish zone," or you can have a card that says, "Target one card and banish it." Your banish zone it's like a super graveyard per se. Usually, what's supposed to happen is that once cards gets banished, that's basically it for it. So there's no monster reborn for banish zone. There's no card effect that you can use to get back the banished monster to your hand. Usually that's what it's supposed to be, but recently there's been a lot of, well, not recently, but there's a lot of archetypes that now they're around that depend on your monsters being banished, that can do all of the things that I just stated that you're not supposed to be able to do. So get back banished monsters from your graveyard, special summon out banished monsters. Yeah, so that's what it should have been, but yeah, since recently it's changed up. Anyways, so yeah, that's about it for this. Now we'll be going into a duel to see if we can observe all the things that we've been talking about, we've been yapping on about. All right, and it is time to duel. Right? So what we're going to be aiming for in this duel is just to show you some of the things that we mentioned in the PowerPoint. Even before we go into the duel, you notice that at the beginning of the duel we draw 5 cards. In the beginning of every game, basically before the game starts, each player draws 5 cards from the top of their deck. That's standard Yu-Gi-Oh rule, right? If you notice, you can look at the field, you see all the zones we were talking about: the spell and trap zone, the main monster zone, the extra monster zone, the field spell zone on the left, and the graveyard and the banish zone, right? And you see that it's basically the same on the opposite side of the field, our opponent's side of the field, right? This is just one of the beginner duels in the solo mode that I against the bot that I actually booted up, just figuring that it will go well to show you guys what's going on, or to like show you what's happening, right? So before anything else, you saw there was a few blue things that popped up on the screen. You realize that those were our phases. You saw draw phase and you saw your standby phase pop up. Now we're currently in our main phase one. Remember that we mentioned, you realize that we did not draw an extra card, because it's a we would normally draw one if we did not go first, but we went first, so we don't get to draw that extra card. You see that the battle phase and the main phase 2 are also grayed out because we can't go into our battle phase because again we went first, right? So now to get out of that, now you realize that we have a bunch of cards in our opening hand. We have two monster cards, two spell cards, and a trap card. If one of our spell cards, can't use it because, as I stated before, you have an unlimited amount of spell cards that you can activate, right? But the problem is that you need to be able to actually carry out the effect of the spell card in order to activate it, right? So with this card, it says that I have to destroy one face-up monster my opponent controls. My opponent does not have a face-up monster on the field, so this card is basically not usable for the time being. So yeah, so since we're going first, best bet right now is, well, to go in, just to observe first. You realize this is a monster card. You can see from all the things that were listed, it has an attack, a defense, a level, attribute, type, right? And a card description. This is a normal monster, so it doesn't have a monster effect, but it has card description basically talking about its lore, right? So yeah, before we even do anything, you realize that we have two options on it, the field, right? These two options is to summon, or to set our card. So what these means, with a monster in your hand, right? A main deck monster, you have two options, right? You can normal summon the monster, or you can normal summon set. That's the term that people usually use, a normal summon set, right? A normal summon, you only get one normal summon per turn, so you can only normal summon one monster for the entirety of your turn, unless you have, again, a card effect or something that states that you can do this more than once, right? With a normal summon, the first one is to normal summon your monster in attack position. That's the basic normal summon. So the one on the left, this would be to normal summon our monster in attack position, and the one on the right, the normal summon set. So basically, we have the option to summon our monster, the normal summon our monster in face up attack position or face down defense position. This is what we call a normal summon set, the face down defense position, right? So if we're gonna click on that, seeing that we're going first and we can't attack anyways, we might as well put our monster in face down defense. So you see, when we put it down in face down defense, we put the card on the face, as the name implies, face down, meaning the part with all the card text and all of that downwards towards the table, leaving the back of the card exposed. So and because it's in defense position, you realize that it's turned horizontally rather than vertically, right? So whenever a monster card is turned horizontally, that's when it's in defense position, and all the rules that we went through on the PowerPoint are in effect, right? So yeah, the reason it's put face down, so because it's face down, you notice that you can't really you don't know what card it is. It's a complete mystery. So because it's face down, you don't know what his attack is, you don't know what his defense is. We know what attack and defense it is because we're the ones that said it, but our opponent won't be able to see any of that. So to them, they have no idea. This monster could have a bajillion defense, for all they know. So because of that, yeah, this is why the face down defense position comes into play, because if it was face up, then our opponent would know that, okay, I can't just attack with any monster. I have to attack with my biggest monster so that I can attack over it, or I can just choose not to attack because I know that this defense is bigger than all the attack of all the monsters I have on the field, right? Or I have in my hand. So yeah, so we chose to put our monster in face down defense. We have two spell cards. As I gone through before, one of our spell cards are basically unusable, because we are unusable for now because our opponent doesn't have a monster on the field. But we also have another spell, and if we look closely to the top right of the spell card, you realize that, or the top in this run, it will be the second line, that the second row of text is that this is a field spell, right? And remember, we went through what a field spell is. We're not going to go directly, we're not going to go into We won't be going into the different types of spells now. If you guys want, we can make a part two. So if you guys like it, please like, share, and all that stuff. So I know that you guys want a part two. Or comment telling me that you guys want a part two. But yeah, say it. The field spell, as we stated before, it won't go into the spell or trap zone when we activate it, which we shall do. It'll go way over there into that little tiny zone over there on the left side of the screen. That's your field spell zone. Only field spells go there. And even though this is a spell card, it doesn't go to the spell and trap zone. It goes over to the specific field spell zone, right? We also have a trap card. As we stated before, we can activate it during our own turn. During the turn, yeah, we can't activate it during the first turn that we have it in our hand. We have to set it before we activate it, right? But even if we could activate it, we wouldn't be able to, because it doesn't. Our opponent doesn't have a spell or trap on their field to activate it. So yeah, we're gonna set this card face down. We also, with trap cards, they're set face down on the field before they're activated. Again, with this, for the same reason that we set our monsters in defense position, in face down defense position, because now our opponent doesn't know what it is. This could be a mirror force. They don't know. I mean, if imagine having a face up mirror force on the field, that would be a very stupid, because our opponent could just be like, well, he has a mirror force, so I'm not gonna attack. So yeah, trap cards need to be face down before they're activated, lest it would ruin the whole sense of surprise. We can also set our spell card, seeing that we can't activate it. We don't necessarily have to activate it from our hands. We could set it also face down as a bluff. Because when you set a spell card in face down defense, you could say, oh, it's a trap card. Ooh. But yeah, we don't need to, seeing that, yeah, we don't. There's no reason, there's no way we're going to activate this effect anyways. So since we can't go into our battle phase, see, we're clicking on it, I'm clicking on it, I'm clicking on it as hard as I can. I can't go into battle phase. So since we can't go into battle phase, our main phase 2, we're going to go straight to our end phase. As we stated before, we can go straight into our end phase from our main phase 1 or any other phase after that. Okay, so our opponent chooses to sound. Ooh, and he goes after our he goes after a dust tornado. So yeah, you see that our opponent, if you noticed, our opponent activated that spell card directly from his hand. He didn't have to set it, he didn't have to do anything. And if he has any other spell cards like this in his hand, he can activate them as well, as long as he can carry out their effect. He can carry out this effect because if we read the text on this card, it says target one phase of spell or set spell / trap on the field, destroy that target if it is a spell. Destroy a target if it is a spell. If the target is set, reveal it. Right, so he won't be able to destroy our trap card, but he will be able to see what it is. We have no reason to activate this card though, because the thing about our card, what it does is that we are able to target one spell or trap our opponent controls and destroy it. The thing about that effect is a little ruling thing that always gets new players. Just because you destroy a spell just because you destroy a spell on the field, or you destroy a trap card while it's being activated, if it's activated, it doesn't negate its effect, meaning that it doesn't stop its effect from carrying out. So even if we are to destroy this spell card, even if this, so let's say this guy activated this effect and he tried to pop our field spell, but we said no, we don't want you to pop our field spell, so I'm going to use my trap card and pop your card instead. Even though we destroy that card, he still gets to destroy our field spell, so it would be a complete waste of our spell, our trap card. So it's kind of pointless for us to do that. So yeah, we don't need to, because I said again, this card only pops spell cards. So we're not going to activate his effect. You'll see that it's a dust tornado, but it's fine. He basically doesn't get any value out of it. He does get to attack over our monster because he has higher attack than our defense. And you see where the whole thing that we went through with the defense position and attack position. Even though his monster had way more way more attack than our defense, sorry, he still was able. We still didn't take any damage. We still didn't take any battle damage from that battle, and so our life points are still at 4,000, right where we started. We're going to activate our Dust Tornado just in case that's a trap card, because you see we can actually carry out this effect, and it's during our opponent's turn. We couldn't have, if we were going second and he had set this card first, and on his first he set his card and we were like this was our turn and we just set this trap card, we wouldn't be able to activate it. But seeing that we set it from the turn prior to this, we can now activate it. So we're gonna use it and we're gonna target this card. So yeah, seeing that that's a trap card, we're not gonna give him the chance to actually activate it. I'm pretty sure this trap card good. I think this trap card is good. Oh yeah, and our card gives us the option to set a spell or trap. We won't be doing that. We have no reason to. So yeah, we destroy this trap card, which is good value. Now we're able to draw a card. So you realize we're in a draw phase because we went first. We weren't able to draw a card during our first turn. But now that our first turn is over and this is our second turn, we're able to draw a card, right? So yeah. So now we are in a situation where we need to choose what we do. It's our main phase 1. We went through our draw phase or standby phase, and now we have the option to activate our spell card. You see now the spell card is glowing. Master Duel has that thing where when you are able to activate something, it gives off that glowing aura around the card, the yellow glowing aura. Right, so we're able to activate this card actually because he has that monster on the field, which we're going to do. Just so that we are able to actually attack our opponent directly. So yeah, we're going to summon out this guy because he has the biggest attack of the two monsters that we have, and we're going to go straight to battle phase. We're actually able to go into battle phase this time and attack our opponent's life points directly because he doesn't have a monster on the field to stop our attack. If he had a monster on the field, we'd have to attack into that monster first before we're actually able to get to his life points, or we wouldn't be able to attack him directly. We'd have to attack the monster, right? So yeah, since this field is completely cleared, we can attack his life points directly, right? So now we pass over the turn back to him because we had nothing else we can do. We only have one special summon, and our opponent summons out a Great Spirit. Now, good thing to note, you realize that let me draw my card first. Ooh, we draw a trap card. That's a good trap card, by the way. Let me go back. Alright, if you look at this card, if you look at this card, right, you realize that it's a darker brown than our monster's brown. That's the indicator that it's an effect monster. Effect monsters have a darker brown rather than the light brown of the non-effect monster. That's a quick way you can be able to identify whether a monster is an effect monster or a non-effect monster. Right, so now that we have a trap card, sadly we can't activate this trap card right now. So we're gonna set it, and we do get another normal summon. So we're gonna summon a monster in attack position, and we have the option to actually summon out a monster from our extra deck, which I'm going to do just to show you guys the extra monster zone. This isn't a good play whatsoever. I don't even remember the defense of our monster. We could most definitely win right now, but for the sake of teaching you guys, I must summon out an extra deck monster to put him in the extra monster zone to show you that the extra monster zone is a thing. Right, monster in the extra monster zone. Another one of our things accomplished. Anyways, now we've done that. We can go into battle phase. A little thing in Master Duel, you can click over here to like look back and stuff that happened. So it just with this card's case, we can't click on it to see that it is the card that he did. We wouldn't know that it's a Great Spirit if we missed that. Like it happened and we look away from our screen. Now we look back, we're like, oh no, we don't know what it is. But because Master Duel does this thing where it basically keeps track of everything, we can actually look at the card and see what it does, its effect, and how much attack and defense it has. So we now realize that we are actually able to punch over this card, which is what we're going to do. Is why the heck not? And we now pass our turn. And you realize that again, because he was in defense position, he took no damage to his own life points. And now we actually are able to activate our trap card, but we're not going to because we don't really have a reason to. He can't beat over our monster. Honestly, I don't know why he summoned that in attack position. But this is the beginner. This is like the beginner bot. You're meant to win this duel, so the bot plays really stupidly. Alright, so we get an extra monster. What we're gonna do is we're going to summon out our Crowned by the World Chalice, and now we're going to be able to activate our trap card, What we're gonna do is we're going to activate our trap card because again, mentioned what we mentioned because we set it the turn our turn prior to this one, we're able to activate it during our opponent's turn or during our own turn after that, right? So any turn after the turn that it's set, we can activate it, which is what we're going to do. So we still, even though it's our turn, we still are able to activate it because it wasn't the turn that it was set. And you see that with this trap card, we're able to tribute one of our monsters to destroy one of his monsters. A tribute basically means that you send a monster from the field to the graveyard to either activate a card effect or to tribute summon a monster. Right, so now that we have nothing else we can do, we're just gonna go into battle again and attack his life points directly because he doesn't have any monsters on the field. I probably should have just attacked that monster to show you guys um how that damage calculation goes, but whatever. Hindsight. Maybe I'm playing this duel too much like it's an actual duel. But anyways, that now our opponent draws an extra card, and okay, so good. We're able to run that back. Um, Draw a card. During our draw phase, we get another trap card. We won't be able to activate it during our turn, so we're gonna have to set it anyways. So it's basically not usable for this turn. So now we're going to go into uh, how the damage calcs go. If we have 1,700 attack, he has 1,300 attack. We're both in attack position. So as we stated before, he's gonna take the difference in the damage. Oh wow, never mind, he has a trap card. Okay, so that's a good trap card. But if he didn't have that trap card, that would have been game as you saw with the yellow strips on the side of the screen. Yeah. With that trap card basically stops him from taking battle damage. That is a good trap card. Yeah, anyways. Yeah. So now he's able to actually summon a really big monster in the field. And he chooses not to attack. Surprisingly. Anyways, so yeah, we can still win this. We have two good trap cards. Sadly, we won't be able to. Again, we won't be able to use this during our turn. So now, yeah, we basically win this duel now because we have this little boy online right here. So if you read this card effect, it says target one face-up monster you control. It gains 400 attack until the end of this turn. And if you read that, you'll see why we win because he only has 200 life points, and yeah, that's enough to beat over him. So we're just gonna go directly into battle phase. As I stated before, certain trap cards can be activated during the battle phase, this being one of them. So yeah, we're actually able to activate it, give this guy a boost in his attack, and beat over this monster. And you realize he takes 300 damage because that was the difference between both of our attacks. So yeah, that's basically a basic duel in Yu-Gi-Oh, I'd say. Hopefully I tried to go through all that I tried to go through all that we went through in the PowerPoint. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed and you learned something. This is just basically all that you need to like be able to better appreciate a match of Yu-Gi-Oh. So when you watch your favorite YouTuber who's he's probably me, I mean why wouldn't he be? But anyways, if you watch like a YouTuber or your friends playing a match or something, you can actually understand better what is actually going on a bit more rather than just be sitting there and being clueless. Anyways, really hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, do all that jazz. And until next time, it's been your boy Bandit on the Pendulum Pilgrim channel, and your attention has just been stolen.